Hi folks, welcome to Set Apart Homestead. This is Travis here at the Prepared Homestead. Well, one of the things that I have talked about probably the most since I've started this channel, and even before this channel when I was, writing blogs and just talking with people in general, probably the number one thing that I've talked about is getting your food source secured. It's more to me than just a prepping thing, and it's more than just a homesteading thing. Preppers tend to store up, and I'm generalizing, okay? They tend to store up emergency food, the freeze-dried stuff. There's certainly nothing wrong with that. Everyone should probably have a little bit of long-term food on hand, just kind of as a little cushion. To have a little, extra security, but also growing your own food, preserving your own food, foraging for your own food, all these things that kind of cross the lines between prepping and homesteading and self-sufficiency and all those other terms that you want to and labels you want to use. It's all really important, and I've talked about it for a long time with people, many years, that our food supply is very fragile. That whole system of our food supply is very fragile. If you just start to dig into it and see how where our food comes from, how it's grown, and how it's this monoculture is a big thing here in the United States. Very few of our foods that we get, when it comes to, say, fruits, vegetables, grains, that sort of thing, come from the United States. There's only a few crops that are really grown here in abundance, and a whole lot of the rest of it comes from imports. And so instead of having a farm that grows a wide variety of food, we have gotten to the point that we have these massive, huge farms of hundreds and hundreds and thousands of acres, and they produce one crop and one crop only. And when that crop fails or something happens, there's thousands of acres of food that either didn't get harvested, didn't grow, or went to waste. And it creates a real fragile kink in the chain. And there's other things, the distribution, the logistics of distributing it, the imports of getting food imported from other countries. And then on top of all that, just how our government works, how they like to control the market, how they like to control the prices, and so they will do different things to manipulate. It's no real big secret, and if you don't know about it, you can look into it real easily, that for many years the government will go in and they will pay farmers not to produce food. They will pay them to plow under their crops or dump things just because they want to manipulate the prices of something. And that kind of stuff, along with all this other that I've mentioned and a few more, walk underneath this tree limb here, creates a very fragile system. And most of the American people, they don't know this. And the reason why they don't know this is because we're all spoiled. It's unlike in many other countries, especially in the past, and even in this country in the past. You can go to a grocery store, at least before all this virus stuff started happening. You could go to any grocery store in any community, regardless of big or small, and you could buy just about anything you wanted. You could buy as much as you wanted. We could waste food. I remember reading a couple of years ago, the amount of food that's wasted in the United States is something like, I think it's 30% or more. I'm not exactly sure on those numbers, but I know it was pretty high, maybe even more than that. The amount of food that's just wasted in the United States, it could be as close as 50%. I don't know, but I know that it's high. And we've done that for years. We've had this gluttony of food supply, and it's been really cheap, and we've been able to have what we want, when we want, where we want. And it's caused the American people to become weak, docile, and gullible, and believing that our food supply system is really that safe and secure, and it's not. And so that's why I've kind of preached for years to don't just depend upon your food coming from the grocery store or the restaurant or wherever, because there may come a day that that's not going to happen, or that it will be, greatly reduced, or that the prices will greatly increase, because even if the food supply system doesn't completely collapse, it could definitely be damaged, and that's what we're seeing right now. It's not collapsed, at least not yet, but it's taking some pretty severe damage, and it's taking. And I remember in a video in the past, maybe it was a year ago, maybe not quite that long ago, but I remember explaining it like a domino effect, that it's not going to take some big, massive, catastrophic thing to happen. It could actually be something kind of small, but if it's just the right time, the right place, the right way, it could cause a domino effect of other things to happen. And that domino effect would just be a cascading events that could affect our food system. Same way with our energy, food utilities. It's kind of the same way. It's a very fragile infrastructure. But today, let's just talk about food. So, we have to, you have to realize, and I know many of you do, most of you do, because you tell me about it, that you've got to get to a point that you're not so dependent upon that food system of going to the grocery store whenever you want and having the food there, and just assuming that, when you get there, they're going to have all the food that you need. There was a study done several years back. I'm sure it's not changed any. This was probably 15 years ago. The average household had about 2.5 days food supply. If they couldn't go out and get any food, they had about 2.5 days of food supply. They probably had some junk food, but actual real food. I know that most of you listening probably don't fall within that statistic, but the vast majority of the American population do and did. And then all of this starts happening with this virus. And they were told weeks ago, there was people talking about it weeks ago, you need to stock up, you need to stock up, you need to go out and stock up. And then people did, or at least some people did, and the media just lambasted them as hoarders, and there were some crazy things going on. But a big part of it was just normal people going out and saying, okay, well, I need to stock up for 2 to 3, 4 weeks. Now what we have is empty shelves all over. I know they're being resupplied, but they're being resupplied much slower than usual. And it's not because people are going out and buying everything, because they're not allowing people to go out and buy everything. Most every store I've seen, small and big, has limits on how much you can buy. You can't go in there and buy, 10 gallons of milk and 50 pounds of hamburger. There's limits on it. And so we're not, that's not the excuse that people are going in and just hoarding up all the food and all the things that's in the store, the basic essentials. It's because the food supply system is taking a hit. About 2 months ago, maybe 3 now, it was back before we really started seeing much happen here in the United States as far as cases. It was already being reported that the ports, the LA ports and a few others that received a majority of their work from China was pretty much closed down. There was nothing happening. Ships weren't coming in from China because of what was going on there. Now we're seeing, and I don't remember the number, but I believe it was something in the neighborhood of 30 or so ports. It's pretty windy. I hope you can hear me. So I'm sorry if the wind noise is getting pretty bad. Getting a little gust of wind there. I believe it was something like 30 some ports now are either closed or have restrictions on them because of this virus. Of shipping ports, food, other materials coming in and out. And then it's snowballing even worse. We've shut down most states. I believe it's 90% now of the population is under some type of stay-at-home order, and the majority of those people also have orders to restricting places like restaurants. Schools are closed down. A lot of businesses, theme parks, things like that are closed down, and all those places order food. And it's causing this this kind of a backwards domino effect. You know, they shut down and it's causing this buildup and collapse going backwards. And there's reports in multiple states, Ohio, Wisconsin, Florida, Missouri, and several others, Indiana, of them dumping thousands and even tens of thousands of gallons of milk every week. Now, a lot of you say, well, milk farmers have to do that. You know, these dairies do that on occasion. That's true, but I was digging some more and doing a lot of reading, and there was several interviews with these dairy farmers, and they said, yeah, occasionally we do have to dump milk, but never on the volume that we're dumping now. One large dairy up in Wisconsin was dumping 25,000 gallons a week. Every week they're dumping. They don't know what to do with the milk. It's not being sold. The grocery stores are still restricting it, but it's not being sold to other venues like restaurants and schools and things like that, and they don't know what to do with it. And it's taking too long to switch over to bottle all that into just normal milk, or to make powdered milk, or to make cheese. So we're dumping all this milk, which eventually is going to cause, and already saw the other day that the milk prices were already kind of going up. It's going to cause a shortage. Many grocery stores are reporting they're not able to get enough milk. And that's just one thing. There was a news report out of Florida farmers, same kind of problem, but with fruits and vegetables, that they had hundreds and thousands of pounds of vegetables that they were dumping. Hundreds of acres of tomatoes are being left to rot on the vine because they have nowhere to sell them, because they were meant to be sold to restaurants and they're all closed. Reports that several large meat processing plants have been shut down because of employees infected with the virus. Another one out of New York, the several meat processing plants up there were having difficulty getting enough coolant to keep their coolers cold because of shipping and logistics and all that. And so they were cutting back on the amount of meat that they were producing and butchering and processing because they had nowhere to store it, because they can't keep it cold. We're seeing a cascading effect right now, folks. And I think it's only going to get worse. Last year, they reported 1,200 dairy farms closed down. There were hundreds and hundreds of acres of corn that did not get either produced or harvested because of flooding. Now we're looking into this grand solar minimum, and we don't even know how much that could affect it. The point being, folks, is that of all the many things right now to be focused on and worried about, your food security should be one of the top priorities. And I'm not on here trying to, be the bearer of doom. I had one person said that I'm trying to be the prophet of doom, and trust me, that's not it at all. I really don't like doing that, but on the other hand, when it's pretty obvious what's going on, I feel as a person that runs a YouTube channel talking about prepping and simple living, that I kind of need to talk about it to, get it into my listeners' ears and their heads. You need to be doing what you can. There's still a chance. I mean, you can still stock up in stores. There's still companies selling freeze-dried foods, but it's definitely more difficult to get to. Just keep doing that, though. If you can come across things that have, places that you can buy big bags of sugar and big bags of rice and that kind of stuff, stock up on it. If you can buy canned foods, stock up on that. But, above all, you need to start doing everything you can to produce your own food. This has been something that it's been a big focus of mine for years. And here, once again, we're working on our gardens. And we're putting out as much food as we can. At this point, the amount of garden space that we're putting out, we're already trying to figure out how we're going to preserve all of that. So that's also another thing that we're focusing on is, buying more cans, canning jars, potentially getting another freezer, that sort of thing to preserve it, because we want to produce as much as we can. Because I have a gut feeling that come this fall, maybe even next year, a lot of food prices are going to get really high, and it's going to be really difficult for a lot of people to get the food. It may not even be there, and what's there, it may be too expensive to even purchase. So, you know, I'm not saying all this to sound like the sky is falling again. And I know it's not the end of the world, but what we are seeing, if nothing else with this, we are seeing how fragile our food supply system is. And many of us have talked about this for years and years and years, talked about how fragile it is, how much you need to do to ensure that you have adequate food. And of course, most people are like, yeah, whatever, you know, you can go to the store and you can buy a whole truckload of, you know, green beans, who cares? Well, you can't anymore. And we don't know when it will happen that, you know, there'll be that abundance again, and it may not ever happen. So this year, I encourage you, right now, you need to be doing it. If you're not doing it already, you need to hurry up and play catch-up game. Get out there, plant some food. If you don't have a space to do gardens, maybe look up a CSA where you can work with like a community type garden or something. Do something, because if you're solely depending upon going to Walmart to get your food, it very well could become a hard thing for you to do on a regular basis. So learn to forage, learn to hunt, raise food, grow food, preserve food, can food, smoke food, you know, all the different things that you need to do involving taking care of yourself when it comes to food. So get on it, folks, because I have a feeling it's not going to get any better for a while. All right, well, hopefully you can hear all this with these gusts of wind. So I'm going to get back to work for a little bit, because it's getting close to being dinner time, and I'd like to get a little bit more done before then. All right, thank you all for watching, and I'll catch you in the next video.